What's up guys, Houndish here. Today we're jumping in with Bungie updates, marathon news, and conversation about Destiny 2, the Bungie community as a whole, and kind of where we're at. If you want my super honest take on how I actually look at Marathon and the Bungie community right now, I'll timestamp the final section of the video because we're going to have a little bit of super honesty time in a few moments. But before that, for the news updates, we're actually going to touch on some commentary from Bungie devs who kind of shoot back at some of the criticism around Marathon while also promising changes and improvements to the game, so that's an interesting conversation. Bungie also outlines some of the Server Slam rewards and when they'll be accessible in the full launch. We'll talk about what appear to be pretty good pre-order numbers for the game right now, despite what some folks would say were mixed player numbers for the Server Slam. And we've got a section about cheating. I can't verify that these clips are real, but clips have been shared around showing supposed cheats in the Marathon Server Slam, which, yeah, I would agree is very concerning if that's already happening. So we've got a bunch of stuff to round up here. If you do find the video intriguing, feel free to share your thoughts below, but now let's get into it. So, initially, as we discussed the other day, we did touch on the Marathon playtest numbers from Steam. That's only one platform, I recognize that. And day one got 143k players. Then there was a big steep drop off going into the second day. Although in the final 3 days of it, it did kind of stabilize with far more consistent numbers, albeit them probably lower than where Bungie would want to be at launch for the game, right? We could speculate all day long about player numbers, where it will be at launch, what that means for Bungie and all of that. But we will simply find out on Thursday and over the course of the weekend. So if it's bad, it will become apparent. If it's good, that will also become apparent. One thing that is already looking reasonably good, I'm sure Bungie at least will be happy about this, is that when we look at pre-order numbers, currently, Marathon is number 3 in the world on Steam. That is globally. So while that also doesn't necessarily mean anything in the long run, right, because players could get in on Thursday or Friday and decide I hate this and refund the game, it doesn't automatically mean that the game is a success, but it's an early sign that things may be going in the kind of direction that Bungie would like to see. So we'll just have to see how that actually pans out. Getting into more of the kind of news and updates here from Bungie. Firstly, Elliot Gray, one of the UI designers for Marathon, said, "There's plenty of work we can do and will do as a team to respond to player feedback about inventory management, navigation, density of info, etc. And I think that's a positive because there are definitely flaws in the UI. However, he did say, don't think for a second though that we're going to remove the source from the UI. And he used the hashtag font slop takeover, which is kind of funny because it directly references some feedback that players, especially on social media, have made around, quote, font slop. And I get it. Marathon visually is incredibly bold and it has this effect where some folks will think, hey, that's pretty interesting. And other folks, yeah, they may see that as kind of visual vomit or whatever other terminology you want to use. This was actually a reply to a very funny tweet though, where Luke CB on Twitter said, I've redesigned Marathon's UI, and as you can see, if you're a Destiny player, they basically added the portal to Marathon, which is both funny and kind of brutally depressing at the same time, right? So the Bungie devs kind of acknowledging some of the legitimate feedback there, but equally having a bit of fun. On a separate note, in more concerning news here, I'm not sure who originally put this montage actually together, but a clip's been circulating online showing what are reportedly cheats being used in the Marathon Server Slam. So I'll be completely honest, I'm like someone's granddad when it comes to cheats and what's actually going on here. Are these wall hacks, right? Where you can see character models through a wall? If that's what it's called, then great. But either way, we appear to see a player here who can see the position of other players through walls and seemingly have aim hacks going on as well. And it's basically more of the same with, yes, some inappropriate imagery thrown in the mix as well, because loads of people are kind of obsessively hating on Bungie at the moment. As I said, I can't verify that this is legit, but I do find it incredibly concerning that players have managed to get cheats up and running in the Server Slam, if it is indeed true. Bungie have made loads of promises about their anti-cheat capabilities inside of Marathon. Some of that revolves around BattleEye, and yeah, a lot of folks aren't necessarily super confident in BattleEye's ability. I had speculated before this dropped that with the game being on the same engine as Destiny 2, and Destiny 2 currently having some serious problems with cheaters, could that mean that cheats were easier or quicker to develop inside a Marathon? And maybe that's the case, maybe not. I don't really know enough about it, but I do agree it's very concerning if those are indeed real cheats that players are using. Not good news at all, and I hope Bungie's plans and detections for these cheats are as solid as they've suggested they are, as otherwise, obviously, it will become a problem. Final quick update here on the news side of things anyway. In terms of Server Slam rewards, the stuff we get for completing the initial mission and then ranks 10 and 30, Bungie have said it will take some time for them to make it into everyone's in-game mailboxes. So if you don't see them upon logging in on Thursday at launch, they should arrive soon. That includes cosmetic rewards, a complex study emblem and the Beta X background, as well as your arrival caches of loot based on your progression during Server Slam. They also note that Server Slam rewards will expire if you don't log in to claim them before the end of Season 1, so bear that in mind. I believe as well well, Bungie had said they're going to drop a roadmap for Marathon and a bunch of info about how the first season will actually play out before we get to launch, so that's going to be in the next couple of days and I will keep you posted. But they also say for Twitch drops, rewards will be granted to your Bungie.net profile and delivered in-game at launch on March 5th. The Twitch-sponsored kit may take up to 48 hours to arrive in your in-game mailbox and must be redeemed by March 31st. And lastly, they reiterate the Server Slam was only a slice of Marathon's gameplay and progression. Launch will bring full contract and faction progression, all 6 runner shells including Thief, and 3 zones which includes Outpost, then the endgame zone Cryo Archive, and a ranked mode coming during Season 1 alongside other surprises. So, as I said before we got to the Server Slam, sure, it's a slice of Marathon, but it was a pretty big slice of it. Now, to address the kind of discourse and feelings in the Bungie community at the minute, last week when the Server Slam dropped, I gave some early initial impressions for Marathon, which actually seemed to kind of mirror or run alongside what a lot of people have said in the time since, right? Where I do still feel like a bunch of elements of Marathon are a bit undercooked. Some of it is just sandbox tuning, right? Which is relatively easy to fix and iterate on after a launch. Obviously, the UI is more complicated than that. I think the kind of onboarding for the game could have potentially done a better job, right? To make it a bit less confusing. It's a very steep learning curve, Marathon. And ultimately, I still kind of subscribe to the idea that Marathon, in a way, it's kind of half a mile wide, right? The breadth of experience you'll have is somewhat narrow, but the depth of the experience is more kind of 10 miles deep, right? What I'm ultimately saying is that Marathon is nowhere near as diverse as a game like Destiny 2, right? Where you've got multiple different worlds with different palettes, different enemy types, different themes in every major release that ultimately sort of change the flavor of the game about as much as you can actually do while it is still Destiny 2, right? And that makes Destiny a very broad palette. Marathon doesn't really do that. It's far narrower, right? Essentially one game mode, one sort of way of playing the game, or one concept around the game, which is a lot less broad, but the progression and investment systems are incredibly deep. So naturally, that lack of breadth will put some players off. And I still subscribe to that. But, as I said yesterday, having spent some time with Marathon, I have found that the experience gets more interesting over time as you actually get into those progression systems and start to feel a bit of loot chase, right? There's also a skill chase in Marathon because at first, it is quite overwhelming. And so I understand that some players jumping in and being simultaneously overwhelmed by the systems and the things going on screen, while underwhelmed by the gameplay experience, it's a bad combination, isn't it? So it's not surprising that Marathon is divisive in that way. Plus, its visual identity is very Marmite or Vegemite or whatever you get. I don't know, if you're in the US, you probably have something different, right? But it's one of those things where some people really like the flavor, and for other people, it makes them want to puke. But speaking to the Bungie community, I had a lot of comments yesterday following my more positive commentary about how I've actually enjoyed Marathon more over time, kind of calling me a paid shill and all of this stuff, and I can promise you Bungie would not be paying me to bring up Steam numbers and talk about heavy drop-off of players. I don't think you'll see any #ad video or content that does that because the game developers hate it. And if you want super honesty from me, the last time Bungie did pay me for anything was actually back in the final shape, and the reason that I said yes was because naturally I was going to be covering the game, and Bungie were like, hey, do you want to stream the raid and we'll send you some cash to do it? Hey, do you want to play the campaign and this new seasonal activity? All you need to do is stream it and then put #ad on it. So I said, yeah, didn't I? Because I was already gonna be doing it. So it just meant I'll make some more money in the process. That has absolutely not been the case for Marathon, however, because over the last couple of years, I've been far more critical of Bungie in the way they've handled Destiny 2. So on a personal level, it's a bit frustrating that as soon as I say one positive thing about Marathon, everyone forgets how candid I've been about Bungie's handling of Destiny 2 and their studio at large over the last couple of years. It's been dreadful, to be honest. And as some folks in my comment section said, if Bungie had a better reputation right now, perhaps Marathon would have a better chance, and I absolutely agree with that. So while I'm enjoying Marathon, I can understand that some folks who haven't clicked with it feel really frustrated because they feel that Bungie focusing on Marathon has done massive damage to Destiny 2, and to an extent that is absolutely true. It's also infuriating to see the Marathon dev team responding to feedback like all of this you can see on screen, and constantly communicating with the player base around the Server Slam when it feels like Destiny 2 was kind of kicked to the wayside. Bungie made promises about roadmaps and things they were going to do. They also delayed the next major update with like less than 2 weeks notice. And even before they did that, I predicted that that was precisely what was going to happen because we'd heard the rumors, and I was completely honest about how absolutely dreadful that is as a way to actually handle the game. So trust me, some switch has not been flipped where I'm now just back to Bungie fanboy mode. I've totally forgot about the Destiny 2 stuff and can forgive it because Marathon's the best thing in the world. That isn't true. Also bear in mind, my livelihood has been built on covering Destiny 2. So if you think I'm not as annoyed as you about how Bungie have handled that, then I think you're probably incredibly wrong. I'm probably more angry than the average person because it has a far bigger impact on my life overall. But as I said before, there is a simple reality where if Marathon does terribly, then Destiny 2 probably has no chance whatsoever, right? And while some folks would say, but if Marathon does well, then Bungie just won't focus on Destiny anyway, perhaps you're correct, yeah. But Marathon doing badly means Destiny 2 has no chance. Marathon doing okay or well, or being the new biggest FPS in the world, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if any of those things occur, then it does give Destiny 2 a chance, right? Plus, aside from all the politics and the noise, I simply gave Marathon a bit of a chance and ended up eventually having a bit of fun with it, right? It's that simple. So there we have it. I'm going to play Marathon because I think it's interesting. It's also part of the wider news story for us as Bungie fans and ex or current Destiny 2 players and fans, right? Whatever happens now, one way or the other, is going to go down in Bungie history. And yeah, it could be the final nail in the coffin. But who knows, it might just be, based on what we're seeing, a massive turnaround from Marathon's initial announcement and reception a year ago to, who knows, some kind of a success. We'll find out. But yeah, I'm not trying to change anyone's opinion. I'm just trying to continue to be honest. I've been rooting for D2, and I've been rooting for the D2 community. I've pushed our feedback and concerns onto Bungie as much as I possibly can. I've called them out when they've done things wrong, and I've genuinely been one of the most critical channels out there. But that doesn't mean I'm going to force myself not to enjoy something just because I'm aware that Bungie have made mistakes in the past, right? Eventually we have to move forward, and yeah, I hope that includes Destiny 2, as I've said like 1,000 times. Guys, cheers. I'll continue to do my best, keep you up to date. I'm rooting for Destiny 2's future. I'm rooting for Marathon's future. And for a future where we just get to play games we actually like. So if you're on board with that, stick with me and I'll keep you up to date. But otherwise, cheers for watching, and I'll catch you all very soon.